Welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast with your hosts, Joshua Poniatowski and Alex Taylor. Let's talk football.
Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Syndicate Podcast. My name is Joshua Poniatowski, and I'm here with Alex Tayller. What's going on, Alex? How's it going?
What up? Surviving.
So, for those of you that don't know, we just went through Hurricane Milton. Both me and Alex are down in Florida. I am actually in Daytona Beach. Alex is in Orlando. Don't stalk us. How did you fare through Milton?
I was fine. Just a little bit of power outage and stuff but I'm in a big old apartment building, so we held on pretty well. How about yourself?
Well, it must be nice because while my house didn't flood, I was in a disaster zone with trees down. Pretty much couldn't get out for a couple days because of how much it flooded. Right now, rocking with a generator to power pretty much everything that I'm using right now. So if you hear humming in the background, that's what it's from. And I'm using my cell phone as a hotspot. So we're making it work today.
Yes,
that is worth a like and subscribe. So please begging. I'm just messing with you.
The sacrifice.
Yes.
You had enough food and water and the toilet paper that's always
food,
out.
No water. Exactly. Just a like and subscribe. Throw it our way. But this week, of course, we're going to talk week 6 observations, waiver wire ads, buy low, sell high trade targets. But before we do that, we do have a burning question. It actually came up in our group chat. So in one of my local leagues, I have one of my buddies. This is like a local league, people from middle school, which I know sounds crazy, but we've been playing for over a decade. One of my buddies, he's new to the league. He's new to fantasy football, Caleb. He has James Cook as his running back too. And he was currently losing to the opposing team by 1 point. So the guy playing him, Rustlin, or we call him the Crab. So the Crab went out and added Tyrone Tracy, then dropped Tyrone Tracy right before kickoff so that, the other, Caleb couldn't add him. He picked up Ty Johnson and then went out and added Ray Davis and then dropped a different player. So essentially effectively ensuring he would win. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that low life 30 type of play? Would you do it?
Yeah, I think that sounds very crabby of him.
Yeah.
And I know our tagline for this podcast is "Go steal a championship."
I mean, he stole that.
I don't know. From a moral standpoint, I don't like to do that, and I'm kind of the opposite. I'll straight up shoot the guy a text. Hey, bro, I don't know if you saw Cook's out if you want to make something happen. Because it's like, I don't know. You got to think long term. Maybe you get this win, but one, these are probably your friends. I imagine you're just pissed off a friend. Like they're mad at you.
Yeah.
It's also a chance for you to not everyone's as fantasy educated and involved. Like it's a chance for you to help someone, educate them. Like, hey, you got to look out for this. Try to do that when you can.
First year guy,
things of
right?
that nature.
First year fantasy, right? Joining the
league.
Also,
yeah. What happens if this guy gets not even just pissed, but just gets defeated emotionally, and then it's just I don't really like fantasy's not for me. I don't want to do it next year. Then you have guys because that happens. People get burnt out of fantasy. If you're too competitive all the time, too much of a dick to your friends all the time, they're I don't care about football that much. I'm out, and then your league suffers. So for all of those reasons, I think it's a dick move, and I try not to do it. I don't know. How about yourself, Josh?
What I will say is in the group chat, I shared, hey, probably going to be out. It's turf toe. They're probably going to inject him with something and see how it feels. And if it's good, then go. But if not, probably leaning more towards unlikely. I think the Crab saw that and was like, you know what? I can do something real sleazy right here and make an adjustment. I don't know if Caleb picked up on that. So, what are you going to do?
So you should have texted the guy directly instead of
the group for
broadcasting
sure. That's probably on me there. But going through a hurricane, I'm giving myself out there.
Yeah. You got it.
But I am okay with it. It is crazy dirty and it is a terrible thing to do. But I mean, similar situation, winning by 1 point. I don't know if I would add and drop a player just to do that. Like that, I think was a little bit too far. But like, because if you go in and add every
Just to
running back
trigger
and
the waiver,
drop the
just to
waivers,
trigger the waiver.
yeah, like
Yeah, that's dick.
that I think's a little sleazy. Like adding all players to the waivers and now they can't pick them up because it's a day before game. Like that I don't like. But I think picking up backups and blocking him, I think that is a viable option if you're willing to give up the bench space, because he's also sacrificing 2 people, right, from his bench to essentially lock in this win. So I don't think it's that outlandish. Yeah. But we have
I think you just got to be willing to deal with the consequences. And hey, if you don't like, if I was in a league, if I was in like a blind league for like a blind money league, where like I didn't really know the guys, like I get it, like it's a savvy, competitive thing to do.
Yeah.
I just think sometimes it depends on who I'm. If it was against you, maybe, because I know but I know you would know better or could like if I could outmatch someone who I feel like is on an equal wavelength, that's one thing. If it's someone who I'm like, oh, we got a new guy, it's his first year playing fantasy, doesn't know what's going on, like I don't know. I'm not gonna wamboozle that guy.
I gotcha. Well, the crab made the move. He's going to get the win this week. It is what it is. Moving into week 6 observations.
I'm more of a lobster man.
Yeah, for sure. Crab's like the low of the low, the crustacean, like, gross. Week 6 observations. Deshaun Watson is a terrible quarterback, and me defending him last week, you should have literally drove an hour from Orlando, came to my house, slapped me one, and then drove home. Like, what? Why would I have defended? I know I watched so many Browns games, but
I don't know.
His stats are like have been worse than Jamarcus Russell level.
Yeah.
So, I think the players are going to revolt at some point. It's going to be a similar situation of, the Panthers and Bryce, like their contracts and their money, like the players are going to start getting pissed, and that's what's going to turn the tide because the owner doesn't want to burn $100 million. What week do you think this is going to happen? And do you think it's going to happen? I want to see a prediction from you.
One sec. Let me look up when is their bye, because I feel like that'll be kind of crucial.
Well, while you're doing that,
no, I'm saying, what do you know?
Oh no, I don't. I don't know what bye week they have. But while you're looking that up, I will just reemphasize, like, if I was a player and I was 100K was me getting 1,000 yards receiving, I'm sure Amari has contracts related to that. Like, there's no way I'm not saying something, especially if I'm not getting the touches, and that's what happened in Carolina, and that's why Bryce essentially got benched, because the players were like, listen, you're costing me money at this point, you need to make a change.
He's not good enough. Yeah because they need to put up stats and have good for their next contracts, and to be able to like, oh look, I did 10 touchdowns this last season, like I need that. You need that for sure in the negotiation. So they got a week 10 bye, so they got 3 games before that, now and then.
Pretty late.
Cincy, that's a loss.
Yeah.
Baltimore, that's a loss.
They're gonna get
and
beat
then
down.
and then the LA Chargers, and they're pretty, like, they got a good defense, a good run game, like
figuring it out.
They're probably gonna. That's probably a loss. So I mean, at that point, the 3 straight losses, and then going into a bye week, I don't see him surviving longer than that. Coming back out of it week 11, I don't see him lasting.
Okay, so you're saying week 11 then? Okay,
would be the birth of Jameis. Would be the birth of the Jameis the Brown.
I feel like that's late, but maybe you might be right. Bye week. Now, remember, the trade deadline is between weeks 9 and 10. So if Amari's going to get moved, it'll have to be before that. If they're thinking about dealing anybody else, got to be before that. Week 10 is a late bye. But maybe, that after the bye might make sense, especially if they've lost that many games. But at that point, if you're an owner, you're like, screw you. I'm just, playing. We're not doing anything anyway. Maybe we just play them. But I like it. I'm gonna keep that jotted down. Week 11. We'll see what happens.
But I've been telling you that's a cursed organization. I've been saying it, and you didn't want to listen.
I didn't.
But now, Josh, what about David Montgomery just being an absolute beast for the Lions? Yeah. He's now played 19 regular season games for them, and he's scored a touchdown in 16 of those 19. Currently, he's sitting at RB6 on the season. But for some reason, like the fantasy community keeps treating the guy as if he's like an RB2.
Yeah.
You'll remember preseason. I was kind of fading Gibbs, and not because Gibbs I thought was bad by any means. I was like, Monty's the truth, and he's here, and he's not going anywhere. And then the Lions just announced they extended him for another 2 years after this. So I do have a couple Gibbs stock. I'm just kind of curious. Do you think it's about time to finally like curb expectation and realize Gibbs is never just going to have like complete workhorse role, and he's never going to be 25 touches a game kind of guy?
I mean, yes, curb expectations, but never fade Gibbs. All I'm saying is he's still running back 12 and averaging 16.6 fantasy points a week, which I would say is pretty great.
He's great.
A two team in PPR, full PPR. He has the high upside with catching, right? Monty isn't going to be catching the passes out of the backfield. Gibbs is going to be a third down back. Detroit has just been obliterating most teams, which Monty receives more, he's more ground game focused. But I am no way.
More late game.
Yes. And we talk about handcuffs all the time. Like, you're getting a starter that is number one when it comes to any type of handcuff situation, who's still top 15 running back. And if anything were to happen to either of these guys, like, give me a break. They are running back one for the indefinite future. But yes, so not fading that man ever. But yes, I agree. Curb expectations from an opportunity standpoint just because of that. All right, so let's talk about Chicago's strength of schedule. I'm just going to mention their
Bears.
Yeah, the Bears, the rest of the season. So Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, Packers, Vikings, Lions, Niners, Vikings again, Lions again, Seahawks, and Packers. So this is a Caleb Williams like comment is why I'm bringing this up. Some of these defenses, they do excel in stopping the run, but the Commanders of all of them are the best at stopping the pass, and they are like a middle of the pack team. He literally might be a viable quarterback for the entire remainder of the season simply due to the strength of schedule, which means maybe he can give Jaden Daniels a run for his money for Rookie of the Year. Do you think he is a product of greatness and generational talent, or a product of great offensive matchups?
No, I was very impressed with him this week. He was my smash start of the week last week. I did wake up to watch that London game. Mm-hmm. He really seems like he's settling in. Like, their O-line is still pretty rough at times, but like never really seems flustered. He seems very in control. Mm-hmm. And I'm just loving the fact that it's, we've had so many like first overall and early QBs just like completely bust, that I'm just loving like the battle that him and Jaden are both doing so well.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of exciting for the game. Like, the game it's more fun when you have good quarterbacks like battling each other. Like, you get excited for those games. Nobody's excited about a Will Levis matchup against like AOC or something. Like, I don't know what's coming up, but like, you're just like, I guess I'll watch just to like maybe squeak out something. But right now, if you said Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams were battling this week, you'd be hyped for it already. And they've only played 6 games.
Yeah. I mean, Jaden just went against Lamar, and it was like the talk of the week, right? Like, up and coming rookie versus MVP candidate, last year MVP, like, so yeah, I agree. It's good for the game.
It was pretty good game too.
Yeah, and so, so we'll see if he gives him a run. But yeah, Jaden's obviously the clear winner. But, for those of you that are betting people, maybe Caleb has worse odds now that you can sneak one in there. All right, moving into the waiver wire pickups. Remember, these are guys that are 50% or more available in your leagues or in the leagues that we've been looking at. Who you got for us, number one, Alex? And this is no particular order.
Well, first up is going to draw...
Yeah, no particular.
These aren't like ranked by any means.
Yeah.
So this is a guy who is owned in 1% of leagues, Sean Tucker. So of those 1% people, had any of them like heard White was out and were like, whatever, I'm going to start him, or maybe they were just that desperate. I don't know. It would have been the wildest spot start of all time.
Everybody was like, Bucky, give me more. That's what they were like.
Yeah. So the second-year undrafted running back out of Syracuse exploded for 17 touches, 192 total yards, 2 touchdowns. He went undrafted, and not a lot of people know about him. Obviously, me being a Bucs fan, I knew about him. But I mean, he was a beast at Syracuse. It was a first-team All-American. Holds a bunch of their school records for most rushing yards. But he actually fell in the 2023 draft, or fell out of it. He went undrafted because he had a heart issue. Oh, and they got medically clear. He got medically cleared. So like as Bucs fans last year, we were like, "Oh, this guy's a beast. He just had the heart thing. Like he's gonna be insane." And just never. He would get a couple snaps and just never did anything. So he's been around, but just never did anything. And then all of a sudden, just exploded out of nowhere. And it's kind of like hard to really grasp what happened. I mean, but Bucky also had a great game. If Tucker wasn't there, people would have been very happy with Bucky's performance. So Todd Bowles actually came out today already and made a comment and he used the term 3-headed monster for what might come moving forward, which is maybe more like from a fantasy perspective, probably more aggravating. From a Bucs fan perspective, I'm excited for it to get them all involved. But from fantasy, I think it's gonna be hard to know who to start kind of week in, week out. I think White probably loses some of his early down work, but he's a great receiving back, so I think he's still going to have a role. And then we'll kind of see what happens with those other two. But just a shout out to my Bucs offense. Do you know, because we had Godwin be wide receiver 1 on the week, and Tucker was running. Yeah,
I'm joking. Yeah,
and Tucker was RB1 on the week. Do you know the last time there was a wide receiver and running back number 1 at position on the same team?
So I'm going to just go with the Niners because I like the Niners. Christian McCaffrey and Debo 2 years ago, 2022.
So it actually wasn't too long. No, you're wrong. It wasn't too long. It was week 1 of the 2023 season.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But just to show you how fast people fall off in the NFL, it was actually Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen.
That makes more sense. I should have went there. You know what? That makes so much more sense.
Little over a year ago.
It's a fun stat.
But so I mean, I think the stats make Tucker probably a pickup, but I would curb expectation. Just because we don't know what his role is yet moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a stash. I mean, I think in Dynasty you got to roster him immediately. Try to get some juice because I'd imagine he's probably available in most. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking Bucky going down and then maybe White going down, but even then, like the offenses look so powerful. So potentially.
Don't jinx all the hammies on my team.
Yeah. All right. My bad. All right. So talking about wide receivers who fall off and look to be great. The guy I got is JuJu Smith-Schuster. Literally everybody thought this man was dead, but he has risen from the grave, and he is I think a top wide receiver ad if he wasn't added last week after his performance because they had a bye week this week. I think he should be rostered in every single league. It doesn't matter. He's on the Chiefs offense. He has Xavier to compete against, who's really more of a deep ball threat, right? We talked about this. Old man Kelsey, who, he's getting the targets, but he hasn't looked like his prime tight end 1 self. He's getting older, getting up there, trying to get married to T Swift, doing all that good stuff. The targets have to go somewhere else, and JuJu slotted directly in to that Rice role. So, I mean, we saw Rice literally come from a rookie and be this elite wide receiver 1 option. I'm not saying he's going to be Rashid Rice, but he's going to get opportunities. He's going to get targets. He's in a good offense. He has a good quarterback. Like, he checks all the boxes that you want from a waiver ad. So I like JuJu, and, based off matchups, if I need a flex spot, I'm plugging JuJu in.
It was nice to see him get revitalized a little bit, but we also kind of know what JuJu is and what he isn't. Like, he's not a home run threat. Like, he's not physically gifted to just take over a game. But I think, especially in like any kind of PPR situations, he's gonna get looks for sure. So I think at this point he's got a reasonably decent floor is what I would say. I don't think he's not gonna have a lot of boom games, but I think his floor is pretty stabilized.
Yeah, we're thinking Wandell style kind of vibe.
Another
right?
receiver kind of.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably maybe take him over Wendell at this point going forward.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, Wendell, I finally thrust him in my roster last week, and he let me down.
Yeah, it happens. Happens to the best of us.
But Romeo Doubs rostered 32%. I mean, the Packers kind of merry-go-round of which wide receivers are going to do well, which we kind of thought would be the case preseason. And his is kind of funny just because he was in the doghouse, got suspended last game for not showing up to practice or complaining about his role.
Yeah, he was complaining
just
about
goes out and
reps
is like,
and targets.
all right, well, I'm gonna go get 2 touchdowns.
I guess it worked,
So,
right?
I mean, and those are his only two touchdowns of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
God dang, squeaky wheel gets the grease,
Yeah.
But he still only ended the day with 4 targets. Jordan Love spread the ball around a lot. 10 different receivers got a target. Reed had the most with 6. Nobody else other than Reed had more than 4. So, every week there's going to be one Packer receiver who probably does pretty well. I think the real move is to just try to get Jordan Love.
I was about to say, yeah, Jordan Love is the guy to own in that offense for sure. But, Wicks just went down. He might be out for multiple weeks. So that limits that, 4 to 5-headed monster that they had from a wide receiver standpoint. So, Doubs could be a viable play and maybe a little boom or bust type. But still, they're going to pass the ball. They're going to sling it. And Jordan Love is going to get some touchdowns. So I think every Packer had a touchdown except for Wicks because he got injured and left the game at half. So, yeah. Moving into the tight end landscape, which is so great. TJ Hockenson. People have forgotten about this man because he's been on IR. So maybe some of you have been stashing him, but crazy unlikely because of how many injuries that there's been. And just to kind of remind you of how good of a tight end he was, last year he finished as tight end 4. And towards the back end of the season,
didn't even play
Mullins, and Josh Dobbs throwing him the ball. So now we have a capable Sam Darnold, which we've seen. Tight end needy teams, or even a potential pickup for a trade target if he booms one week, right away. I think this is a great stash. You're at a point where you can maybe add a roster spot. I think it was too early with all the injuries earlier in the year, but now you got to go out and get him if you can, I think.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he actually probably, was getting drafted at a decent clip just because I think people wanted to stash him on the IR. But with how bloody this season's been, it was like his roster percentage is definitely dropping. So, but if you can get him now and actually have him be able to play and not just on your IR, it's definitely a decent move.
Yeah.
So I got a guy at 0%, and I don't know how much he's gonna do, but we'll see what happens. Bub Means, which is also just a great name.
Good old Bud.
Good old Bud. So Olave ended up getting a concussion on the Saints opening drive and just left the game.
Crusher.
And all of a sudden, this rookie 5th rounder out of Pitt comes in, ended up with 8 targets, turned 5 of them into catches for 45 and a score.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing with this fellow rookie at QB, Spencer Rattler. And they showed some chemistry, some promise. I feel like sometimes you get this effect from 2 guys who are on the second string unit, playing together all the time because they're always second stringers, and then they both get elevated, and it's they have that rapport.
That's cool. Yeah.
So, I don't think. Like I say, rookie 5th rounder. I'm not expecting much out of him, and I don't think when Olave's back, Olave's still number 1. They still got Rashid Shaheed. He's never going to be more than a max 3rd wide receiver on the Saints. And also, when Carr comes back, he probably doesn't have the same rapport with Carr that he does with Rattler. So, this is a low-end ad with maybe some flex appeal for a week or 2 until Olave and Carr come back. And then you're your time's go back to the bench.
And I think you got to be desperate to start my man Bud. I'm just saying,
Bud Means.
I feel like Spencer Rattler, I was shocked how well he played, to be honest, as his, rookie start. The Bucks obviously looked electric on offense. They took a break in the second quarter just to kind of recharge, because didn't they put up 27 in the second quarter or something ridiculous? Yeah.
Things got weird.
Yeah.
Things got
So the
weird.
Bucks are like, all right, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna rest for the third and fourth quarter. Give this guy some points. That way we can get more fantasy points. And then came back and pretty much finished the job. But yeah, I mean, he's got a cool name, and if we know anything, cool names tend to do well. So
Hey.
could be worth a flyer. I would argue this guy has a cool name too, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, so my apologies to this gentleman. Kimani Vidal, right? He was third string running back, but on the Chargers. Gus Edwards was just put on IR. Amari is now elevated running back 2, and while J.K. Dobbins obviously is the main back, and if you listen to Alex about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you would have traded for J.K. at this point. Shout out to Alex.
Told
good
you.
pick. I think this could be a high, maybe not number 1, but a potential league-winning backup. In college, he had 1,700 yards, which in his senior year, which is the almost highest of all collegiate athletes that year. He is a great blocking running back, which is critical from a coaching perspective. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield, right? And that was clear because he caught his first touchdown pass was 36-yard reception. So I think this man could feed families if JK got hurt, and we know JK is, I'd say, somewhat injury prone. So rostering him, this isn't like a start kind of guy. This is you keep him on your bench, a stash. If there's other, if Braylon Allen's already rostered, now Jahmyr's already rostered, like some of the more common backups that have that lead role opportunity. But I think is a good one, especially on that Chargers run heavy offense.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple, like 6 opportunities and snuck out that receiving touchdown. So, we'll see. And we'll see what happens if he carves out a bigger role.
Solely handcuff status, I think. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of handcuffs, who sometimes get chances to start, Aaron Jones is still week to week coming out of the bye. Last year Chandler had 1 start. He did put up 150 and a touchdown. So, I mean, I think I think you add him, hoping if Jones sits, and then you kind of wait and see what happens. If Jones is out, I think you smash start Ty Chandler.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, Ty, especially in that offense, the way it's looked, the way they've been passing the ball, the way they've been moving the ball. They have a great run defense, and we're going to talk about some of the Minnesota guys on why you should have him rostered 100%. So moving into another Minnesota guy, Sam the man Darnold, who he's right around like QB 12, QB 14, which isn't, that's not terrible in any means. But next week, the Vikings are going up against the Lions. All right. So listen to some of these stats. The Lions are 27th in the league out of 32 teams against the pass. The Vikings are 30th in the league against the pass out of 32 teams. Detroit is leading the league with 30 points a game, and the Vikings are top 6, allowing almost 28 points a game. To say this will be a shootout or should be a shootout is an understatement. If you need a plug-and-play quarterback, Sam Darnold, I feel like, is the guy this week. And after this week, they do get the Rams, which, they have a decent pass defense. But after that, they get the Colts, who are 29 out of 32 against the pass. The Jags, who are 32 out of 32 against the pass. So you're looking at a potential 3 out of 4 week starter at quarterback, especially if you're a quarterback needy team. I think he's a great smash pickup this week and potentially for the next, 3 out of the 4 weeks.
Yeah, because it is kind of funny, because the Vikings have been doing so well this season. People kind of think their defense is all right, but it really hasn't. It really hasn't been.
Their run defense has been pretty stout, but their pass defense has been terrible. So teams are scheming around that pretty much to pass the ball more because they've been so good against the run.
So yeah, him and JJ are probably just gonna keep on connecting, keep popping off.
For sure.
And Addison's been having a couple decent games since being back. But so this guy, probably has been scooped up in your league, but definitely worth an auto ad if he's available. That's Tyrone Tracy Jr. the young electric running back in New York for the Giants. He's been really beasting out with this new opportunity with Singletary being out.
Yeah.
He's both the leading rusher and leading the backfield in receptions, and he's really just doing everything. So I mean, it's like sometimes bad Giants team. I don't know. The Giants are weird
I know,
at
it's
times,
so flaky.
but I mean, if Neighbors continues to be out, I think he has even more upside. And I think he's even done enough to warrant a decent amount of snaps,
maybe some touches
when Singletary comes back. I mean, not that Singletary was bad, but I think Tracy's looked good. So I think even when Singletary comes back, I think they give him some looks. So again, I don't know what his roster percentage was, but it was probably decently high. But he wasn't totally scooped up. So I think you should go and grab him.
Yeah, he was still under that 50% threshold when I looked at him. So yeah, agreed. I think he could be started running back 2 role or even flex if you're like desperate and you need running back help or just a player to play. Giants are going to be losing, still going to get opportunities on the ground, can get them through the air, with those 6 receptions last week. So yeah, I agree. All right, we're going to jump into buy lows. So these are players that maybe either underperformed this week or went up against a good defense, and maybe owners are willing to sell them for less than what we think they might be worth. And Alex is going to get us started. Who you got for us?
So mine might be a little hard to pull off, but that's going to be Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah,
electric rookie, been playing great, but he did just have the worst game of his career, albeit a very short career. But he only snagged 3 catches for 27.
Yeah.
But he also had a bad drop on a guaranteed touchdown, and then had another one where there was a better throw from T-Law. He might have hit pay dirt, but I'm not going to totally count that one. But so even on his bad game, he was very close to having another good game. And again, he's not going to come cheap, I don't think. It just kind of depends on if that owner currently values him as a true wide receiver 1, or if they think he's still just kind of like a promising rookie who maybe is a beast, because I think he's locked in beast. The Jags now also have a nice run of 4 straight games against bottom half passing defenses. Mm-hmm. On top of that, the Jags defense themselves are absolutely terrible. So I think game script is going to be in his favor. Yeah. They're going to be throwing the ball constantly. I think I like Brian Thomas Jr. as a true wide receiver 1, top 10 wide receiver for the rest of the season. So I think, again, he won't come cheap, but if there was ever a week to try to snag him, coming off of 3 catches for 27 is probably your best chance.
Yeah, he's clearly wide receiver 1 in that offense. He's come in and dominated right away. I think he's garnering 3 of the 5 weeks around 8 to 9 targets a week, which is great, especially when his average depth of target is typically deeper than most typical wide receivers because he is a deep ball threat and spreads the field. So I agree. I mean, if you can get him for below market value because of that one bad game, maybe the owner's snoozing, go for it. My guy, another wide receiver, talked about him last week. The myth, the man, no. Amari Cooper. It is Amari Cooper. He is none of those.
You talk about him every week.
He's none of those.
And I'm going to
keep freaking talking about this man until he has a blow-up game, and I'm going to prove everybody wrong. The Browns are terrible. Deshaun Watson is terrible. When we talk about a buy low target, my man is the depths of targets that you can buy. Owners are probably sick of the Browns, sick of any players on that team and want to get rid of them. But we just talked about Jameis. He has to come in, right? Even from a moral standpoint, you're going to get a pep talk out of Jameis and they're going to be fired up. They're going to lose by 40, but Jameis is going to give them a pep talk where they're just going to love it and have a great time. He's going to throw 8 interceptions, but also maybe 8 touchdowns. Yes. So, I mean, get Amari while you still can. Maybe there's a couple more weeks of Deshaun, but the second that change happens, Amari stock
or he gets traded.
Yes, opportunities at that point. So maybe he becomes a sell high at that point. But I think eventually it'll come together for the DooDoo Browns. All right, moving into. Or sorry, you want to add something on that, Alex?
No, you're good. You're good.
So moving into the sell high targets, these is maybe have overperformed, maybe have multiple weeks of performance, and it's just not really there. And you're trying to pull one over on the other guy. Who you got? Who you got for us, Alex? Sell high trade targets.
Oh, you're not gonna be able to get much. You're not gonna be able to get much for this man. But even selling him now is probably selling higher than I think he will go.
Yeah.
And that is Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. It's just been rough for him and just that whole offense. But he's been dealing with a nagging back injury, and that popped up before the game. It was like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And then he ends up playing, and he ends up getting a touchdown. End up getting 10 something points in half PPR. Yeah. But he even said today, quote, IR is quote not off the table. So that's worrying that he's got this kind of issue that doesn't seem to be going away. Might hit IR, might not. On top of that, we have the impending return of Anthony Richardson, which is just going to really drag down the entire Colts offense.
Yep.
But so now's the moment because Pittman has had double-digit points and half PPR for 3 straight weeks. So it kind of at least on paper seems okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's only get worse. I mean, Josh Downs is back. Alec Pierce gets all the deep stuff. Anthony Richardson's coming in to just really suck. So sometimes in a situation like this, I like to kind of look in the league history. I like to go back a year and kind of see who had Pittman last year. Yeah. He had a great finish to the year last year.
Great. He was a PPR machine. Everybody wanted him. Yeah.
So whoever that person is, assuming it wasn't you just double dipping, but he might have some positive, Pittman was great. Like I had a great time with Pittman, and then they might give you a little bit better value. Than I think he's worth. Because right now, I mean, Pittman's borderline droppable, in my opinion, especially with this IR news.
Yeah, I mean, I have some Pittman stock. It is very unfortunate. I am at the point where I have Kenneth Walker, so I'm probably, once we get off this, I'm going to send an offer, Pittman for Sharbs, get back up, get that handcuff. I mean, Charbonnet, it was top 15 running back, and he literally only started, I think, two games or something to that extent, 3 games. So, having that handcuff for Kenneth Walker is huge. So I'm hoping the owner takes it and isn't listening to this. So yeah, I'm gonna send that out. Talking about
they don't listen to jerks.
Yeah. Talking about wide receivers, this is probably going to be unpopular opinion, but Zay Flowers, I think, is a sell high target at this point. Now, what I will curb this with is he's not a sell high target this week, but he is a send something out, like give people a text that players you're interested in, like, hey, you interested in Zay? If they're like, yeah, maybe, or kind of sorta, start the discussion. And then they are who do they got this week? They got the Bucks, right? They got your Bucks. Yeah. So the Bucks should put up a lot of points, right? The Ravens' pass defense has been soft, and Bucks have loved the passing game. So he should have another positive game script where he's seeing a lot of targets. But the reason why I'm low on him, even though he just had a boom game, was because Zay literally had all of his fantasy points in the first half of that Ravens game, and it was because of the game script and the back and forth. But the second the Ravens went up, they ran the ball, they controlled the game, and he was uninvolved from that point forward. So I think after this Bucks week, they have the Browns and they have New England, which they should dominate on the ground, both of these teams, and should be able to control the game script. So I think he will be at his highest value after the Bucks game. Then he'll get the Browns, then New England. And then his stock might drop. Maybe if you want him, go out and trade back for him. Unlikely, but so yeah, I think he'll be at the highest value that he'll be at after this Bucks game, and worth throwing a feeler out this week to get that vibe and get that feel to get them thinking about it. I know you guys say, what do you think?
No, well, I mean, I don't hate it as a sell high aspect, only because he is boom or bust. 6 games. Yeah. He's got 3 games over double digits, 3 games under double digits. Like that's who he is. So he is coming off of 2 straight good games. It was 15.5 and 17.9 and half PPR. So like with a boomer bust guy, if you wanted to sell him, your best chances after a streak of good games, because he's due for his occasional bust games. That's just his nature. So from a strictly trading aspect, I don't hate the timing of it, but I mean I do like the player, and I do understand they do get fourth quarter just becomes King Henry time for obvious reasons, because he's just a beast. So I get the game script narrative.
Let me pose this question to you. Would you trade Zay Flowers for Brian Thomas Jr.?
Why do you have? Is this in the league? Because I'm in the
I
league
don't
with
have
you
Zay.
with for Zay Flowers.
I don't have Zay. I'm just saying from like
no. Oh yeah, I would take Brian Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. over Zay. Okay, all right, and that's why I was just curious, right? Like because he was our buy high, my sell high. So okay, BTJ, got it. BTJ. Yeah, I think it's a lot closer than what we think, but yeah, I think just because of the upside that Brian Thomas Jr. brings, a terrible defense that the Jags have, and the boomer busts typically with Zay, I do think you make that deal.
Zay's also a little guy. You always kind of like I get worried about little guys. You never know how they're gonna hold up a whole season.
Everybody in Achan, right? That was my man's and Tank Dell too is like 120 pounds wet. All right, jumping into the play of the week. So last week I talked about Amari. That was just me being an idiot because Deshaun Watson has literally checked out. And I was getting a little frisky, right? I was feeling myself. I'm gonna do the same thing this week, so I don't care. But I am I'm taking a whole game because I love doing that. Thanks, Alex. I am taking Sam Darnold and Jared Goff this week to both go for 300 yards and 3+ touchdowns. The Vikings have one of the best rushing defenses in the league. They're allowing only like 70 yards a game, which is crazy. Dan Campbell, even though the Lions have one of the best rushing attacks, I think Dan Campbell is probably going to scheme a little bit more towards the pass. I think this helps with Gibbs' upside from a pass catching ability. I think this drops Monty a little bit because of that. But I think this is going to be a high scoring affair, high scoring game, maybe 60 points, 60 plus, especially with how bad these pass defenses are. And I love this start of the week for both these quarterbacks and really anybody on that general team. Both the teams. What do you feel?
I do think this game's gonna pop off for sure. But one thing I'll say about the Vikings, like run defense on like the 70 yards, it's like they've won every game. They've been in the lead pretty early, like pretty convincingly in every game. So I think game script has kind of like forced the run out for a lot of these teams. So I think that kind of plays a little bit of part of it. I'm kind of curious to see, if the Lions can just run it down them like their throat like they like to do everybody else, but
they can maybe keep up with them,
my guy from last week. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. My boy Caleb that I called last week went ham in over in London for some, had some tea and biscuits over on the Jags' expense.
Yeah.
But this week I'm gonna take Diontae Johnson. He's been gobbling up targets since Dalton took over, averaging 11 a game. This week, he squares off against the Commanders in a game that Vegas has the highest over/under.
I
think Jay Daniels.
Okay.
Yeah, 52 was the highest over/under that I saw. Wow. Unless things change.
Yeah.
I think Panthers defense is terrible. I think Jay Daniels takes an early lead and is exploding. And I think Dalton is just peppering Diontae Johnson with catches the whole rest of the game, just trying to keep up. The Commies don't have they have a decent, we said they're like middling at best. So, I think they win the game convincingly, but I think Diontae has a decent game. So I'm calling a juicy line of 9 catches, 115 yards, and 2 scores.
I mean, you haven't missed so far since we started this, but my Lord, if they keep this close at all, I think the Panthers are going to run the ball. Chuba Hubbard has been like their main dude. Like Chuba Hubbard has looked great on the ground. He's been efficient. He put up 92 yards last week. So I think they're going to try to run the ball and control that game script. But Jayden Daniels obviously is hard to bet against with how many points they're putting up and how good they've looked moving the ball. So absolutely, if they get behind, they're going to have to pass. It is the Panthers, so that's typical, expected of them. But man, that's a huge line. But I'm starting DJ for sure. I'm starting DJ in all my leagues. But 115 yards, 2 scores, 9 catches. My oh my. Hot take. All right, well, that's all we got for y'all today. If you like what you heard, give us a like and subscribe. If not, thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, go steal a championship, and we'll see y'all next time.
Peace.